Hey, Ross Warner, coming at you from the Justice is Coming Panic Room here in beautiful Suffolk County, New York. Trying, I guess, to bring whatever good luck I may or may not have had last week for the game. The game certainly on Sunday was bittersweet. It was great to beat the Giants. Obviously, you couldn't watch the game without thinking, number one, wow, the Giants have won where it counts. Specifically Eli Manning, and the Chargers, of course, have not. And you couldn't help but think that about this season in general. That here we are, handing the ball to Ryan Matthews three times on the goal line when it's probably too late to really mean anything. Where was that early in the season? But I've kind of willed myself into a place where I feel like, what? The 3 games left for this team. They're against their division opponents. Obviously, there's a slim chance the Chargers making the playoffs. Baltimore's got to lose twice. Miami's got to lose twice. I guess the Jets would have to also not be tied with us. But you know what? At this point, the Chargers need to go out swinging. And I feel like that's kind of the space that they're in, that this is their playoffs. Tomorrow night's a must-win, no matter what was to happen. If they were to somehow upset the Broncos, next week would be a must-win. They kind of have themselves, I think, in a space similar to what I'm talking about. It's very easy, and has been, unfortunately, far too easy to think about the opportunities that they've let slip by this year. Washington, obviously, especially having been there, the Tennessee game. I don't think you can necessarily just plug 2 wins in and say, oh, well, the Chargers, should have 2 more wins at this point, because we don't know if, for instance, blowing that Houston game, had some effect on how they played in Philly. I mean, they said it did. If, losing to the Raiders had some effect on, how they played the following week. It's impossible to say. Obviously, they came back a couple times this year, whether it be Indianapolis, Dallas, Philly. At this point, there's obviously very little chance of them making the playoffs. But like I said, they need to go out swinging. There's a great scene in Cinderella Man, if you haven't seen it. Where Jim Braddock gets a chance to fight again, and Paul Giamatti is his manager, Joe Gould. Basically gives him that kind of speech. Like, you're going in, you're basically just going because nobody else is ready for this fight. Last minute, go out in a blaze of glory, Madison Square Garden, and lo and behold, he wins. And I think it's that attitude of nothing left to lose, especially in the case of Jim Braddock, who's basically fighting the Great Depression at that point. So with the Chargers, they're going with the attitude, hopefully tomorrow, that they can win this game. It reminds me a little bit of the 2007 AFC Championship game that brought the Patriots to the brink, but obviously we didn't have the horses, especially on defense. We obviously didn't have the healthy horses on offense, but we didn't even have the guys on the team on defense to really push the Patriots. And the Giants, of course, did. And I remember reading somebody saying that the Giants believed that they could beat the Patriots. They really did. Every time people talk about chalk and trash, whoever the player is, I'm reminded of Plaxico Burress getting on the NFL Network saying that they were going to hold the Patriots to whatever he said. I think it was 2 touchdowns or some astronomically low point total. And, Tom Brady kind of sat back and said, yeah, we'll see. And sure enough, Giants did it. Now, of course, Plaxico Burress didn't play defense. Plaxico Burress ended up catching the winning touchdown. But, if the Patriots don't lose that game, he's just the idiot who fell in the tub the week of the Super Bowl, who talked too much trash. But, he was able to back it up. The Chargers don't talk shit anymore. It's just that I was thinking about, I guess, Keenan Allen, how great he's become. And, even suggesting that the Giants were put out of their misery, that makes, many little headlines. Keenan Allen's a guy who I certainly worry one day we won't be able to keep financially. Vincent Jackson had his flaws, getting arrested in the 2008 playoffs and the 2009 playoffs, I believe. Certainly the 2009 playoffs. I'm not sure if his DWI was during the week of the Pittsburgh game. That might have been Jamal Williams. But nonetheless, I worry, with that position, wide receiver. Is his ego going to be one day too big? I mean, it certainly isn't now. But that's the one position where I think you need to have a big ego. And being a bit of a prima donna or diva isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as you're not, on the level of a Terrell Owens or something like that. But in terms of the game, the Chargers, I think, got a little confidence from losing that first game. by 8 points. Again, I'm sure Denver, can certainly put up. They put up what 50 somewhat last week points. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh well, we held them to 28 points. I mean, it was 28 points. We were also scoring field goals there in the beginning of the game. And McCoy claims that he's not going to just go in and play it close. He recognizes if they don't win tomorrow that the fight for the playoffs for the Chargers is over. So he claims, and I'm going to have to believe him, that he's not going out there to just play it close. He certainly has not always done that. Like I said, you can't look at that 3 carries by Ryan Matthews in Washington and not be reminded of when he didn't give him 3 carries or a single carry. 3 carries last weekend, and then reminded of the 3 carries in Washington. But gonna have to take the guy at his word. That he's gonna go out tomorrow and he's gonna let it all hang out. To quote April Powers in this year's, I don't know if it was the second or last episode of Eastbound and Down, telling Kenny when he was getting back on the air, on the sports sesh to just go out there, and he was brought in to fuck shit up. And Chargers need to fuck some shit up tomorrow, at least, try as hard as they can to do so. So it'll be interesting to see. They recognize that this is their playoffs. It may be the only playoffs that they're gonna get, but they're gonna go out there thinking they got to win the next 3 games. And realistically, for the season to go any further, that's what it's got to be. If somehow they upset the Broncos, would making a 9-7 record out of 5-7, would that constitute a good season? Even though they would have not made the playoffs most likely. Yeah, I think it would. Again, you look at teams like Carolina. Usually, teams that go out on a high note are the ones that carry it over. And I think it was Matt Calkins. I know it was Matt Calkins, and Union Tribune talked about, you want to build something. So I'm not saying it would erase the Tennessee and Washington debacles, but and let's not forget, by the way, that if Philip Rivers doesn't hit 2-2 in Kansas City, that we're probably talking about how he again kind of sat on a lead. I'm talking about McCoy, and ultimately Alex Smith led the Chiefs back, and they took that lead, and Rivers was eventually able to define 2-2. And of course, we could also say that I'd be dwelling on the fact that Rivers took a sack when you absolutely can't take a sack on that final drive. But nonetheless, trying to stay in the present here. I'm gonna have to take Mike McCoy at his word that he's gonna let it all hang out tomorrow. And hopefully the Chargers can go out on a high note and fuck some shit up. Defensively, obviously, that's the biggest concern. The Broncos can be had. The Chargers would need to stick with the running game. Certainly, last time they had the ball a lot, but they didn't convert. They didn't convert touchdowns. Field goals aren't going to do it. Certainly not tomorrow night. So it'll be interesting. The Chargers are as healthy as they've been all season long. Again, this is a case of too little, too late. But they're healthy. Melvin Ingram, considering the fact that he hadn't been on the field all year, looked pretty good. And apparently behind the scenes, it's quite a motivation for the rest of the guys on defense to see him even out there. Teo had one of his better games. Again, we'll have all offseason sit and weigh whether or not he's worth, where we picked him. But certainly can't argue with Tom Telesco's draft picks thus far. So it'll be interesting. I guess I read today that Cam Thomas lost his starting job. That makes me not happy necessarily because of Thomas, but it's good to see the Chargers actually, being proactive. Unfortunately, we're so used to, I'm so used to, I'm sure you are too, seeing guys who kind of get free passes, just a lack of common sense. So, obviously my biggest concern has been Mike McCoy. Is he just a rookie? Why does he continue to make the same mistakes? Why does he continue to not seem to learn from the mistakes? But I'm going to have to assume that he's doing so. We're stuck with him for at least another year. I can't imagine the Chargers, doing anything with the coaching decisions, the coaching staff rather. At least not the head coach. I'm trying to think what else I wanted to talk about. Like I said, it was really bittersweet on Sunday. Nice to fuck up Eli Manning. But again, it's talk about kicking a guy when he's down. I mean, they haven't done much this year, the Giants. Obviously, you could argue, and a lot of the San Diego writers have, that, if Rivers had the defense Manning had, he'd have 2 rings, and that's probably, true. I still don't think Rivers is the reason we have won the Super Bowl. As much as I hate Eli Manning, and I was the one that called him the night before the draft in his hotel room, the W in Union Square, told him that karma would come and get him, and clearly it did not. I was the one who threw my Charger beads on Archie's lawn later that year in the Garden District in New Orleans when I went down for Jazz Fest. But as much as I hate him, certainly, 2007, Eli Manning, played through a rib injury and, made throws in the Super Bowl that won that game. One of them, obviously was a 1 in a million throw to Tyree. In the second Super Bowl, he made plays. Certainly that throw to, I believe it was Manningham, and again. So, I mean, you can't take it away from him as much as I'd like to. It will be interesting to see what the defense can do tomorrow. They can get pressure on Manning. Knowshon Moreno is a really physical runner. I mean, he's the guy that I'm most surprised with this season. How he's been able to just rip off runs and really, I want to say keep defenses honest. I mean, the only time that Peyton Manning, when he was with the Colts, any only time that he can really be controlled is when you get heat on him. And the Chargers used to own him because they could get heat on him with guys like obviously Merriman, but I don't want to mention Sean Phillips. Even in the playoff game in 2008, you had guys like Seiler and Dobbins, rushing the passer. Obviously Stephen Cooper. So it'll be interesting to see if Pagano can get anything going tomorrow night. Welker isn't going to play. He's been, spotty, and there's a guy who has made a lot of big drops in huge situations in the Super Bowl. So it'll be interesting. I keep using that word, but I can't really come up with anything else. It will be, I guess it'll be interesting tomorrow. So hopefully, like I said, we're just going to go out there and just let it all hang out. And that's the only way that we can do it. That's all that we're left with. The bigger issues of, where we went wrong, we'll have all off season to do that. But they have to have the attitude, and I think they do, that this is it, and that they can't sit and dwell anymore about, wish we could have beaten Miami, which, again, Miami's gotten themselves, out of a rut. It's not just the Chargers lost to a crap team. The Washington game obviously stands out even more because of what's gone on in D.C. Houston, there's a team that, we look at, but, that's all in the past, and tomorrow, as I've said repeatedly, the Chargers will hopefully just go out and fuck shit up. So I'll talk to you during the game via Twitter, some other outlets, and hopefully justice is coming. Ross Warner, December 11th, 2013.